Saw is very much like some of the best horror movie series. They start off on a high, but as the series progresses, it starts to get worse and worse. Sadly, Saw became known as that stupid torture porn series that wouldn't go away. But if you ignore the sequels and look at the first film as a standalone movie, it's actually a pretty good horror film. The plot revolves around two people who wake up in a room. They are chained up on either side of the room, and in the middle is a dead body. The body has a tape recorder in its hand. They find a tape which essentially tells them that they only have so long before a poison gas comes in the room and kills them both. Meanwhile, one of the men's family are actually being held hostage. At the same time, we go back and forth between backstories of these two men, as well as the story of a detective who almost caught a serial killer called the Jigsaw Killer, who's the person who's locked these two up in the room. We see some of Jigsaw's kills, and we see the persona he's hiding behind, which is actually really creepy in my opinion. The film does feel a little muddled at times, which is probably one of my biggest complaints with it. They try to create so many subplots that at times you don't know which one to get wrapped up in. There are a lot of twists and turns, and sometimes you do end up getting a little confused. The film is extremely flawed. There are tons of plot holes, some of which are resolved in the later sequels, and some of which don't get addressed at all. However, I would be lying if I said I disliked the movie. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I love this movie. Despite its many flaws, the film is very creepy, atmospheric, and at times quite unsettling. The premise is good, and Jigsaw is an amazing killer. He's definitely one of my favourite horror killers, which, now that I think of it, would probably make a good video. There isn't as much gore as you'd expect from it if you started with the sequels, however there is some gore in there. One of the most iconic traps in the series is in the first film, but sadly the woman managed to escape from it, and that one is the reverse bear trap. Jigsaw's methods of killing are that he creates these very elaborate traps and makes people try and escape them. At one point in the film he says, "How much blood will you shed to stay alive?" which is essentially the sort of thing his murders are based upon. Those who die are the people that don't have enough will to escape themselves. Except for in the sequels, because the traps start to literally become unbeatable. The death scenes that are in the movie are really cool. In fact, there's one thing I'd say is good in all the films. The deaths are really cool and well made. Each one is extremely interesting, although there are a couple really dumb ones. For example, there's a scene in the last movie where someone is super glued to a car seat and literally has to pull all the skin from his back to escape. Yeah, that is pretty stupid. As a whole, despite its many flaws, Saw's still a really good horror movie and one of my favourites. Although it's not for everyone, it's definitely for me. I give the original Saw an A++.